So look at this workflow. I built it in my usual way through N8N, and it took me about an hour to build. If I plug in the new release of Claude Code, I got almost the exact same workflow made and working in less than 10 minutes. Claude Code is about to change everything if you're serious about using N8N to automate your work. Not just because it's faster, because it also extends what N8N can do. Instead of spending all your time just getting a workflow working, you can use that saved time to push it further, building front ends, databases, payments, things N8N was never designed to handle easily on its own. Things that businesses all want and need. In this video, I want to show you 3 things that become possible when you use N8N with Claude Code and why that combination completely changes how fast you can move. You're going to want to stick around to see the last one. It's seriously impressive. So let's get straight into it. So why would you even reach for Claude Code if you already know N8N? Well, the first thing you're able to do is make workflows from scratch much faster than inside N8N. Over the last year, we've seen a huge number of build instant N8N workflow videos, but they've always been pretty disappointing, right? Often they've taken longer to fix the errors than building the workflow actually in the first place. But by connecting Claude Code to N8N MCP and N8N skills, repositories that are designed to hold the context of thousands of N8N workflows, including the intricate build details that you know when you're experienced in N8N. It can build workflows full with prompts inside your AI agents. And all you need to do is brain dump, plan in plain English, and it will start building out the workflow after asking you some clarifying questions. You're able, therefore, to treat Claude Code like a human collaborator, someone who's actually got knowledge of building workflows. And to show you how powerful this is, I set out to build the exact same entry-level workflow that produces weekly LinkedIn content using each platform, and here's how I performed against Claude Code. On the left, you have me building out the workflow from scratch after planning it, and it took me around an hour to build. And I've got 2 years experience building N8N automations versus the right-hand side where I literally brain dumped using text to voice the same intricate plan into Claude Code, set up the N8N MCP and skills connections, and it finished an almost identical looking workflow ready for me to tweak in less than 10 minutes. So one thing's for sure, it is faster at building workflows, but this is where Claude Code starts getting even more powerful. So wait until you see what we're able to do with it. The second thing then you're able to do is actually edit your workflows directly. Now this helps make them more applicable to other use cases. So imagine you've mocked up as well this social media post generator MVP on N8N and you're excited to sell it to users, but we all know that distributing it to multiple people and keeping users' data separate is going to be super important. You can't sell a product and give everyone access to everyone else's data. So we have a couple of options. You can sit here and work out the details yourself. How do we set up tables in a database provider like Supabase? What should those tables look like for different users, for different functions? And how can we update the trigger to receive and send the correct data? So we had an existing schedule trigger, but actually we might change that to a webhook trigger. Or we can just ask Claude Code to do it. Again, it connects to the N8N MCP and N8N skills, which tell it how to build proper N8N workflows, find the right workflow and edit it. We no longer need to do the planning and thinking. All of that additional thinking overhead is completely gone. So let's see it in action. So firstly, it makes sure we have the proper infrastructure set up. So it gives us commands to run inside Supabase for the tables, telling us where to find the credentials to connect to the tables. And then it's also going along and finding the workflow inside N8N, making the appropriate edits to all of the different nodes, as well as the transformations inside those nodes, and returns it ready for testing. So we make a few tweaks after that, and we've got a completely edited workflow ready to put now into production and start testing. So it's added a webhook trigger so it can be externally accessed, but it also now connects to our Supabase tables. So not only is it faster at building workflows, it's literally editing our workflows entirely without all the thinking overhead. So it's not only faster, it is also less complicated. And by the way, it's extremely easy to set up. So if you want to know how to set this up from scratch and build a SaaS from scratch, let me know below and I'll create a full course showing you how to do that. So it's faster, it edits our workflows, it creates our workflows. Now this last one is going to be completely changing the game of how you build with N8N. N8N has no front end, no database, no payment provider. You can't turn anything into a SaaS or sell it without all of these things. We already saw that you could connect up to a database and that we could use Claude Code to speed up that process, but building out a beautiful front end that works with your N8N backend and takes payments is a whole other way to build with Claude Code and N8N. Now for this, we're going to need some extra muscle and to explain exactly what's going on. Now let's work backwards. We already know how we're using N8N. We're using this as a sort of engine. We know that we can run reliable processes every single time, very deterministic processes, and use that as the backend. So we use this to run our automation and workflows, and this runs the processes. We then bring in the muscle, which is Claude Code, which basically builds the how. It allows us to call on certain skills, which are effectively prompting guides on how to do certain things. For example, how to build front-end designs in a nice way using the front-end design skill. So Claude Code can call on that to help build a nice front end. We're then also giving it the N8N skills so it knows how to connect and build inside N8N, which we've seen already through the workflow creation and workflow editing. And it's done the actual editing through the N8N MCP. But what we're actually also introducing, especially when we're doing complex projects where we're building out solo products or projects, then we need to introduce some sort of framework like GSD. And the reason that GSD or Get Shit Done framework is really powerful is that actually it introduces this planning and strategy layer so that we can keep context inside of Claude Code and the relevant context for each block and basically go through and execute the project in phases while maintaining the full context. So as you execute or vibe code in something like Claude Code, you'll have noticed if you've done it in the past that it loses a lot of context. As you get further down the context window, we get what we call context rot, which is actually where we lose the context or it compresses the context, and the tokens that we spent earlier in the process explaining the context are given more weight than the most recent stuff that we've talked about. So you lose a bit of the context in there. GSD is just a framework created by somebody called Tash, which helps you, as it sounds, get shit done. Lightweight and powerful meta prompting, context engineering, and spec-driven development system for Claude Code. What that means is it plans it out into different folders for you, and we go through a phase of planning, executing, and it helps define for Claude Code what exact tasks have been done and what needs to be done next. And it's effectively built in as a Claude Code skill. Then we have those individual phases where we go through the steps of discussing the requirements. So do you want to use this technology or this technology? And it will actually ask you questions back. We'll then plan out, and then we can execute that phase. And finally, we go through and verify phase by phase, rather than trying to vibe code a whole project and then coming back to see loads of things are broken. We do it step by step, phase by phase, and it breaks them down into understandable phases as you go through that. And then we've got various files that it refers to throughout so that it can understand and maintain that context of where it is within the project. So for example, you have a project markdown document which talks about the project requirements, where we talk about, okay, maybe we've got authentication or LinkedIn profile management. We've got a roadmap, which is updated as we go. So it understands which phases of the projects have been completed. And then we've got the state. So if we ever need to refer back to where we are in the project, we understand that, yeah, we've completed phase 3. And now phase 4 is ready to commence. We've done all the steps for phase 3. And the way that it does this effectively is that it's a framework that helps spin out multiple agents or sub-agents that can plan and execute to ship full apps. But the most important thing is we're maintaining that context so that we never lose that context window as we're building, or we have as much of it as possible in the build. So by extending N8N's feature set with Claude Code and following this GSD framework, we've been able to turn one workflow, an individual workflow inside N8N, into a full stack application with payments through Stripe, authentication and database access through Supabase. We have a GitHub version history to show all of our commits, and all of that took the 2 hours that it would have taken us to actually build out a comprehensive workflow in the first place. So you've got an entire SaaS product or an MVP of one in less than a day. Now this is brilliant for extending the functionality of N8N, but you're probably also wondering about the cost and how much this is going to add to your monthly bill and whether that's worth it. And I can ultimately say it's so worth it for what you can actually do. If you can produce a full SaaS app without a team, without the hours invested in a couple of hours or a couple of days, if you're going to be a bit slower on this, then it's ultimately going to pay back really, really quickly. You're not going to get much at all on the pro plans. So $20 a month is only going to get you so far, maybe an hour or two of prompting back and forth. As soon as you introduce something like the GSD framework, it's going to massively increase the number of tokens that you're using for every prompt, because actually it's going to do really comprehensive research. So you're trading off cost and number of tokens and usage with actually a comprehensive prompt that's able to maintain good context so that it can build and validate and verify as you go along. However, something like the Max 5X, which is something I've used while building this out, $100 a month is probably where you're going to end up. So you can start off on that pro plan and then work your way up when you run out of credits to that Max 5X plan, which is going to give you the ultimate flexibility. And $100 really for 1 month to build out a full SaaS MVP that you can distribute and get in front of people straight away is going to be so worth it. Now, if you've followed this so far and haven't yet built an N8N workflow, it acts as the perfect backend because we can very visually drag and drop, change and update what's actually happening on our app backend without worrying about coding the whole thing or vibe coding the whole thing in Claude Code or Cursor or Lovable and it actually breaking and worrying about that, or it not being secure. We know that N8N has that covered. So check out this complete 2-hour course from zero that will see you build 2 production ready workflows in this next video.